Hello folks, I'm not going to get in your way for long. I'm just going to pick up on a word that Ronan used because I think it is apt, which is that thing of the caliber of the speakers that we have here today. It's an extraordinary list of people who are going to be talking to you with a fairly extraordinary range of expertise. I've had the privilege of chatting to some of them before today kicked off, and it has left me slightly confused and headachy trying to follow all that they said. So I'm looking forward to getting a second bite of it so I can get up to maybe 30% comprehension of the kind of things that we were talking about. After lunch, we're going to have a series of panel discussions, so we'll be able to dig a little bit deeper into some of the issues that are raised by people from the tech industry, from security experts in-house, and from further afield. Where we're going to start is with an organization that is a data processor of some scale, looking at the cybersecurity implications of that line of work. Our first speaker came from Big Pharma, where he worked as a chief technology officer. He's now a CTO with Abtran. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Abtran is Ireland's largest indigenous business processing organization, which means when it comes to dealing with data, they do it at some scale. Will you please welcome Martin Leahy.
Thanks, Anton. Morning, everybody. So, Ronan has talked about technology companies, governments, and so forth, and here we are, Abtran, neither of those, and here we are leading off on the Cybersecurity conference. I suppose it's an illustration of how pervasive the cybersecurity challenge is, that it's no longer the preserve of the big outfits, it's no longer the preserve of the internet traffic managers. It's everywhere, and it's seriously relevant to us all, and you'll see that in some of the pieces I describe here. Just want to try an experiment before we start, just to illustrate that. Alan, could you bring the lights up there, please? Can I get everybody to stand up, please? Everybody up. Come on, don't worry, I'm not going to ask anybody to sing or dance or do anything silly. Now, sit down if you have a Sky TV account. Okay. Sit down if you have an Electric Ireland account. Sit down if anybody in your family has applied for a student grant over the last 4 years. Okay, we're all very wealthy here for that. Sit down if you've applied for a driver's license in the last 4 years. Sit down if you have paid property tax in the last 3 years. Sit down if you've ever had any dealings with Irish Water. Okay, I won't keep going, all right? The only people left standing, and you can sit down now, folks, are people who have not exchanged data with Abtran in the last few years, okay? It's just to give you an illustration that even though we are not an enormous company, we are connected with almost everybody, and our data is as hackable and desirable as many. So this is who we are. I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are and then talk about some of our cybersecurity experiences. These are some of the companies that we manage the customer experience for. We tend to sit between large entities and their customers. We provide the customer experience, we manage front office, we manage back office, and so forth. So, just an idea of some of the data that we manage at Abtran. We have 2,500 advisors spread across 6 sites, and we touch every one of the 1.6 million households in Ireland every day. On an annual basis, we manage over 1 million identity transactions. An identity transaction is where you establish who you are and your eligibility for a service, be it a driver's license, a student grant, an insurance claim, or whatever. 46 million phone calls every year, nearly 1 million phone calls a week. 80 million IVR interactions, 24 million emails, and our own in-house application, Transact, that we've written for payments, handled over 500,000 individual payments last year for different utilities and different services. That's an awful lot of data, an awful lot of data. So again, it's not just the big internet providers who are managing huge scales of data. How do we do this? This is Abtran of old. We used to answer the phone, generally for utility companies at the beginning, and occasionally we'd have a simple thin client type connection back to some of our clients. I saw Mick Ryder in the audience there earlier. You remember those days, Mick. But business got more sophisticated. We had to become a lot more functional than that. And over time, we developed a lot of these services. We started making appointments. We had to build a proper contact center. Like I said, we started to start taking payments. Case management became serious with CRM. We started developing mobile capabilities. We do an awful lot of analytics now, predictive as well as reactive analytics. And increasingly, we're getting into video interaction with our customers. So what we've done is we've kind of characterized our activities into that blue ring you see there. We call it the Abtran Halo. And great news yesterday that the other Halo is going out of business. So there's only one Halo left now. But we tend to live in that blue zone, in that Halo. We usually encounter clients who will have a big ERP system themselves, and we tend to build the services around it. Those of you working for the larger financial institutions or utility companies, you'll be familiar with this situation. You usually have an excellent ERP system, but it's not very good at customer management. It's not very good at the mobile experience. It's not very good at flexible payments and so forth. And that's why Abtran have had to build this technology and data layer. Now, in the past, this is how we used to interact with our clients. Point systems at Abtran, point systems on the client side. A lot of individual point-to-point connections, security layers between the two, a lot of upgrading, a lot of patching, and quite difficult to merge data or ever get a clear picture of data. And obviously, no way with a configuration like this could you be talking about a mobile experience for customers. We've moved to this configuration in the digital and cloud era. What you see here is fairly straightforward configuration. You've got the Abtran systems and our agents on our side. This particular diagram is for a bank. Same for tolling, same for utilities, same for anything else really. The bank will have its own systems. Typically, there's Internet of Things. Obviously, the banks are in Internet of Things for a very long time with ATM and EPOS. And we'll do an awful lot of the interaction. The blue Halo will be in the cloud. Typically on software as a service, we do a lot of Microsoft Dynamics. We do Oracle right now and so forth on the CRM side. We take our payments, a lot of analytics in the cloud. And the beauty of this model, of course, is you have instant access where needed and appropriate for all the customers of the client. From a security point of view, you're worried about 3 key areas in this type of a setup. It works very well for us, but you're worried about behaviors and systems in your own house. You're worried about your cloud provider, how's cybersecurity there, and how are they keeping up to date. But most critically of all, you're worried about that, traffic. What sort of traffic is going back and forward? Because increasingly in our experience, it's not just about data anymore, it's about the nature of the traffic that's going back and forward. So, on the left is how things used to be. And you can see from the gray hairs on my head that I remember the good old days on the left-hand side. Michelangelo, So Big, Melissa. Remember you used to get up in the morning, you'd hear that there had been virus attacks in Asia, you'd download the patch, you'd go around with your floppies to every PC. Happy days. You felt like Nero in the Matrix. Well, on the right-hand side, you can see Nero isn't much good anymore. Okay, Agent Smith isn't on the surface anymore. There's a lot more to it now. You've got phishing, you've got injection attacks, you've got all sorts of bot problems, data breaches, spam, and human behavior is a key area in here as well. When I talk about insider threats there, insider threats aren't often malicious. It's not the rogue inside your department. Often it's Bob from accounts has mailed his stuff home to work on it at home to his private email address. Or worse again, maybe one of your developers has been under pressure to put some code live and hasn't fully tested it through. Maybe your QA and test department hasn't spotted a leak, and your data is leaking out through some sort of weakness, some sort of exposure that you're not aware of. And very recently, we've had a huge version of this with an internet provider. Hands up who recognizes that logo. Okay. That's Cloudflare. Ring any bells? Okay. Cloudflare is an internet traffic manager, DNS, HTTP traffic, and so forth for different websites. So if you've got a Fitbit, your data is going through Cloudflare. If you use Uber, your data is moving through Cloudflare. Any American in the audience or who's been to the States, if you've got a heavily used account in OkCupid, you're also going through Cloudflare. And Cloudflare had a weakness discovered quite recently by this guy. Okay? Now this guy looks like your typical geek, I suppose. This is Tavis Ormandy. And Tavis Ormandy is the internet hero of this quarter. Tavis is the guy who discovered the weakness in Cloudflare. He doesn't work for Cloudflare. And this is coming to the main point that I'm making here. All the hackers and all the malicious attackers work together. And it's very, very important that those who are being attacked, the people in this room, all of us, we need to collaborate and be proactive as well. Tavis works for Google. He works on the Zero project for Google, which is all about exposing weaknesses. He found a Cloudflare problem. Google got the message across to Cloudflare. Cloudflare closed the weakness. Now, there was a few months of leaked data, but you know, my point being, cooperation is what has saved the day. So those are the threats that Abtran has been looking at. Now, it wouldn't be an internet cybersecurity conference without a few slides like this, right? We got to put skulls and crossbones up and the wily hacker there. So this is the time the wily hacker came to Abtran last year. There we were on the left, day one, with our Nero-style protection on our desktops, recently upgraded next-gen firewall, and boom, the wily hacker came to visit about a year ago. Shane, I think late February last year. And we started to see the stuff that you always see, right? First of all, we got Bitcoin ransom starting to be reported around our floor, put our incident team in place, ransom notes started appearing left, right, and center, and we started to see data corruption in specific volumes of our premise-based disk. Now, we were quite familiar with this. We have a lot of certification and compliance and so forth. We were very clear what functionality was being hit. We started to shut down disk arrays and scan them and clean them and so forth. You know, what's missing here on this network that we had is there's no SIEM there. There's no monitoring. We were in the middle of a capital project to get funding for monitoring, and in about 15 minutes that afternoon, the capital got approved, and we installed the SIEM that afternoon, and pretty quickly the SIEM started analyzing, checking, seeing what the problem was. And in actual fact, the SIEM showed the one learning, then it's been constant ever since. It's not about attacking your data. That tends to be the diversion. What they're really after is taking a copy of the data back out through your firewall. We were lucky. We had put in a next-gen firewall. We weren't hit. The SIEM is in place now. And the reasons we survived that attack, we had a focused and dedicated team, educated team. We had the right tools, and the SIEM came in quickly. We had an educated workforce. It was our agents on the floor who started reporting, started shutting down the machines and telling us when there was a problem. We had a very good relationship with our technology partner, and critically, and this is really, really important, we knew our data. We knew where it was. We knew what was in the cloud. We knew what was local. Absolutely important. So this is the Abtran of today. We have much more serious protection on the devices. Our SIEM is QRadar, and we use an external partner to monitor that for us as well. So we 7x24x365 monitoring of our systems. We have the Checkpoint Next-Gen Firewall. We're getting good reports. Actually, that's a good report there. Shane, what was that period for? About 2 months, was it, or annual? 8 months. So over 8 months, we had 21% of our attacks were severity 4. 57% of them were severity 3. But critically, look at that. 21% were severity 2, P2s. I think we've had 3 or 4 P2s in the last fortnight alone. Attacks spotted by the SIEM and stopped. P2s stop your business. Now, the other thing we have is QRadar is connected on the back end to Watson, okay? I'm not here to sell Watson, although I'm sure the IBM people are happy to see it up there. I'm here to sell artificial intelligence as yet another weapon in the fight against cybercrime. Watson has helped us to move to a situation where we're way ahead of the attacks. We can recognize them much more easily in a much more straightforward way. So that's kind of the story. But I want to go back to a basic. A lot of people here, similar era to me, and it's always been the same. It's always been about the data. You're always concerned, don't have your data disclosed or stolen, don't have it damaged, don't have it modified. It's the same problems we've always faced, just the threats are coming from a slightly different area. That's the only change. And from our point of view in Abtran, we would recommend these are the 4 key steps you need to follow. Appoint and train your security function. Audit and classify your data, and use that to get rid of data you don't need. If there's metadata there, you need to ask yourself, why have I got metadata? What is it for? Is it performing a business function? Is it making me my business go better? And if it's not, get rid of it. Put routines in place to get rid of it. Similarly, you know, IE9, ActiveX, Flash, all that old stuff that the marketing department had you put on all the PCs, you don't use it anymore. It's full of weaknesses and exposures. Get it out. Educate your workforce. We've 2,500 agents in Abtran, and every single one of those is part of the fight against cybercrime. And the last one, protect, like we've done, invest, get a good security partner, and never, ever stop monitoring. Always be out front. And that's me on the beep. Thanks very much.